They hired me because I was good with patterns and bad with people. That's how the recruiter framed it, like a joke with too much truth. My badge says Bureau of Subaquatic Research. The office is hidden in a basement level nobody advertises. You swipe your card in the elevator, no floor number lights up, and the car just keeps going down. The first thing you notice here isn't the people, it's the paper. Heavy stock, expensive, thick with black lines where sentences used to be. Every document looks wounded. The hallways are quiet, filled with figures who walk fast and speak slow. They talk in acronyms, never stories. Humor doesn't exist, except the nervous kind. My desk is a gray island under a flickering strip light. 2 monitors, 1 keyboard with the spacebar chipped. They told me to watch the numbers. The numbers are live telemetry from offshore platforms. Pressure readings, magnetic spikes, tether strain. Imagine a hospital monitor for the ocean. Constant pulses, jagged rhythms, sudden drops. That's my world. At first, the job is simple. Log irregularities, file them with the right tags, pass them upstairs. If platform ARC07 twitches in sync with KEL3, I note it down. If tension suddenly climbs across all 4 anchors, I draft the language from a template. Possible environmental interference. The language is more important than the truth. The truth unsettles people here. On my 3rd night, I saw something odd. A clean spike in one of the strain charts. Vertical, unnatural. I ran the usual checks. No earthquake, no shipping lane, calm weather. Then I lined it up against a lunar calendar. And the spike sat right under the dark of the new moon. I don't believe in patterns like that, but coincidences shouldn't repeat with this much precision. I leaned over to Mara, the analyst at the desk beside me. She glanced at the graph, then at me. "File it as periodic interference," she said, flat, already turning back to her screen. That's when I realized something. The greatest danger isn't what we miss in the numbers. It's when we're told not to ask about them. That night, as I typed my summary, it happened. A low hum, not through my ears, but inside my skull. One deep pulse, then another. It lasted 2 seconds, maybe 3. My vision fuzzed at the edges and snapped back. I told myself it was fatigue, or maybe dehydration, but the timing, it came right after I saw the spike. Days fell into rhythm, reports stacked. Section chiefs drifted in and out, always nameless in their emails, only titles. A section chief resigned suddenly. His replacement had no name at all in the signature block, just interim director. A memo circulated reminding us how to phrase staff reassignments in external communications. Neutral, non-specific, kind. That word, kind, felt like a threat. I kept watching the charts. Smaller spikes repeated every few nights. Sometimes tension values across different rigs lined up too perfectly, like someone tapping the ocean with a drumstick. The pattern was subtle, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Late one evening, the hum returned. 3 pulses this time, evenly spaced. I marked the time in my notes and checked the dashboard. At that exact moment, Platform VTX-9 logged a transient load spike, dismissed by maintenance as wind shear. But the weather was calm. I thought about writing that detail in my report. but didn't. I'd already learned that bureaucracy doesn't build walls to protect us from danger. It builds them to protect the danger from being understood. By the second week, I'd adapted. Early in, late out. Protein bars in the drawer. I mapped which printers jammed less, which bathrooms stayed empty. I stopped asking Mara questions. Her silences were answers enough. She left a mug on my desk one morning that said, "Follow the code," in cheerful blue letters. I laughed and threw it in the trash. On the 12th day, an unsigned email arrived. No subject line. Just one sentence. Review for anomalies. Attach standard summary. Attached was a spreadsheet of raw tension values from one of the offshore anchors. More granular than anything I'd seen. Milliseconds between entries. I zoomed in. The values rose and fell like breath. Not noise, not weather, not mechanics. Rhythm. The same phrase repeating over and over, as if the ocean itself were speaking in a code too old for us to recognize. The hum pressed against my skull again. 4 beats this time. My stomach turned. I blinked hard, and when my vision cleared, the rhythm was still there on the screen, waiting for me. I wrote the summary the way I'd been taught, clipped, neutral, smoothed into meaninglessness. Before I sent it, I caught my reflection in the monitor. Pale, flickering, like a ghost trapped in glass. For the first time, I wondered if that's what this job really was. Turning ghosts into graphs, then burying them under red tape. And as I clicked send, the hum rolled one last time through my skull. Patient and low. Like something knocking from the other side. I didn't mean to find the archive. It wasn't curiosity. It was a mistake. The basement levels all looked the same. Identical hallways, identical gray doors with silver handles. I'd taken the wrong stairwell after hours, still half dazed by the buzz in my head from another round of strange spikes on the rigs. I was about to turn back when I noticed the door at the end of the hall wasn't locked. It only required a badge swipe, and to my surprise, mine worked. The room inside was colder than the others. Rows of cabinets, shelves, and dusty monitors that looked like they hadn't been used in years. At the far end, a bank of filing drawers. I knew I should have left, but some instincts bite deeper than rules. I pulled open the first drawer. The documents were older than me. Yellowed pages stamped with the word classified. Dates from the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Reports from ocean drilling expeditions. One phrase repeated itself again and again. Unexplained seismic irregularities. But these weren't earthquakes. The depths shifted on their own, as if something massive had stirred. One folder carried a red label, 1984. The report inside was short, but clear. All drilling operations to cease immediately. Object is not geological. Further study suspended under Directive Solon. Not geological. My throat dried. I skimmed more. Notes about anchors, tethering systems, containment capacity. The diagrams were crude, but unmistakable. Chains. Massive ones. Stretching down into the ocean bed. Anchors, yes, but not for oil rigs. These were built to restrain. As I read, the hum returned. Not faint, not quick. A slow, deliberate rhythm in the center of my skull. It pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Each beat synced with the lines of text my eyes followed, as if the words themselves triggered it. I pressed my palms against my temples, but the pressure wasn't coming from outside. It was inside. For a moment, the fluorescent lights dimmed. My pulse raced. When the hum faded, I was left with silence. So heavy it hurt. I shoved the papers back into the drawer and closed it too hard. The echo cracked across the room like a gunshot. I should have left then. But one folder sat apart, hand-labeled, the ink smeared. Against better judgment, I opened it. The handwriting was uneven, almost frantic. Not official reports, but field notes. Scientists, at least once. They described the object in conflicting ways. One called it a living mass. Another wrote it was a vast void. A third said it resembled a door. Each account contradicted the others, but one detail repeated. Exposure to the object distorted thought itself. When knowledge bends the mind, ignorance becomes a fragile kind of mercy. The sentence came to me unbidden, heavy as the air in the room. Maybe that's why the rest of the world wasn't supposed to know. I turned the page. The notes devolved into sketches, spirals, broken chains, shapes that looked like eyes without pupils. Then words scrawled across the margin. It moves with the moon. My chest tightened. The spikes I'd seen in the telemetry, the ones that lined up with lunar phases. These weren't coincidences. They'd known about it for decades. The hum rolled again, quicker this time, like a warning. I shut the folder and stepped back, heart hammering. Footsteps in the hallway froze me in place. Voices, low and indistinct. I shoved the folder back and closed the drawer as quietly as I could. The footsteps passed. The voices faded. I took one last look around the archive. The neat shelves, the shadowed corners. A thought pressed into me, sharper than fear itself. The bureaucracy wasn't just hiding knowledge from outsiders. It was hiding knowledge from itself. Compartmentalization so deep, no one person saw the whole picture. The deeper the secret, the heavier the silence that guards it. I left the archive trembling, badge still warm in my hand. Back in the main office, I forced myself into routine, reports, tags, summaries, but now every number looked like code, every spike like a whisper from the abyss. The hum came more often, unprovoked, slipping into my skull like a memory I didn't own. I caught myself staring too long at blank monitors, waiting for rhythms only I seemed to notice. When colleagues passed my desk, I straightened quickly, hoping they hadn't seen. At night, the hum followed me home. Not always loud, sometimes just a phantom pressure at the base of my skull, like the ocean itself had placed a finger there and refused to move. The more I tried to ignore it, the clearer it became. A rhythm. Not random. A pattern. Like something beneath the sea wanted me to listen. The helicopter ride was the longest 90 minutes of my life. We left before dawn, the city still asleep under sodium lamps, and by the time we crossed the open sea, the clouds were rolling in like bruises. I sat between two men in gray coveralls who didn't speak once. Their faces had the slack, hollow look of people who'd stopped asking questions a long time ago. The pilot's voice cracked in my headset. Approaching VTX-4. Hold steady. I leaned toward the window, At first, I thought I saw another oil platform. Steel, pipes, towers. But the closer we came, the clearer the differences appeared. Floodlights swept the decks. Soldiers patrolled the catwalks. Rifles slung, boots ringing against the grating. No drill towers, no storage tanks. Instead, a central derrick, taller than the rest, built not around a well, but around something else. The hum came before we touched down. It wasn't faint this time. It pulsed through my skull in a rhythm as steady as a drum beat. 3 beats, pause. 3 beats, pause. My teeth ached with it. I glanced at the men beside me, but they didn't react. Either they couldn't hear it, or they'd learned to pretend. We landed hard on the anchor site. Wind whipped spray across the deck. As I stepped out, the hum intensified for a second, then vanished, leaving me lightheaded. A guard gestured us forward toward a reinforced bulkhead. Inside, the corridors smelled of brine and diesel. Signs marked each sector: hydraulics, command, quarters, medical. The air was thick with activity. Workers in orange jumpsuits carrying toolkits. Soldiers posted at intersections. Engineers scribbling on clipboards. Everyone moved with purpose, but no one looked anyone else in the eye. One of the guards handed me a laminated badge with my name, Cass. Below it, temporary clearance, pressure control team 2B. Follow the assignments, he said flatly. Don't wander. I nodded. My throat was too dry to answer. Hours blurred into routine, inspecting pressure gauges, logging cylinder readouts, cross-checking valves. The machinery looked familiar, yet somehow wrong, built to scale far beyond anything I'd seen. When I asked about the oversizing, a technician just shrugged. Force vectors, don't overthink it. But at night, when the shift ended and the storm pressed close around the rig, the hum returned. I lay in my bunk, eyes wide, as it throbbed in my skull. Not random, not noise. A rhythm, steady as a metronome, echoing the crash of waves outside. I pressed the pillow over my head, but it didn't help. It wasn't coming from outside. I thought of the documents in the archive. The phrase scrawled in the margin, "It moves with the moon." That was the first night I understood what they meant. Some prisons are built not to contain the guilty, but to restrain what waits beyond. The following evening, I found myself wandering the inner catwalks. Officially, I was on a break. Unofficially, I was looking. The derrick towered above everything, crisscrossed with steel beams and floodlights. Inside its skeleton hung chains so massive, each link could have crushed a truck. They descended into the Black Sea below, vanishing into the storm. I gripped the railing hard as the hum spiked again. Louder here, closer, like the chain itself was vibrating with the sound. My vision swam. My balance faltered. For a second, I thought I saw movement in the water below. Something vast, shifting under the surface. Then lightning split the sky, and all I saw was foam. A voice startled me. "You're new." I turned. A worker in a hard hat stood a few feet away, his eyes red-rimmed, his face pale. He leaned on the railing like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "I'm Cass," I said cautiously. He laughed, bitter, hollow. "Doesn't matter. You'll just be another name on the list. What list? The takeover crew. Every week, 7 of you. They send you here to keep the chain from snapping. His voice dropped. We're not drilling oil, kid. We're holding the chain. The words hit harder than the storm. I wanted to press, to ask what exactly we were holding. But the man's eyes shifted to the floodlights above. He muttered something I couldn't catch and walked off into the rain. That night, alarms shattered the silence. Sirens wailed, red and blue strobes lit the decks, and the anchor sight shuddered under my boots. Orders barked over loudspeakers. Hydraulics teams to stations. Secure the valves. Move. I sprinted with the others toward the cylinders. The hum roared now, no longer subtle, no longer patient. It beat against my skull in sync with the siren, an oppressive rhythm that drowned out thought. At the base of the derrick, the chains groaned. Links larger than cars strained against the tower, vibrating like plucked strings. I stared up in horror as one titanic link lurched downward a full meter before slamming taut again, the whole structure shaking with the impact. Workers screamed, soldiers shouted into radios, and through it all, the hum rolled steady and merciless. Fear spreads fastest where the truth is forbidden. I knew then that whatever we were holding down here, it wasn't asleep anymore. Part 4, the revelation. The commander summoned me 2 days later. I was led through steel corridors into an office that looked more like a bunker. The walls were bare, the desk bolted to the floor, and the only window was a slab of reinforced glass overlooking the central derrick. Behind the desk stood a man with a scar that pulled one eye into a cloudy white blur. The other eye, sharp, metallic, studied me like I was already written into his report. "You're Cass," he said, not asking. "Hydraulics team." "Yes, sir." My voice sounded smaller than I meant. He leaned forward. "You're not temporary anymore. You're part of the protocol. That means you'll stop looking for answers where none are permitted." I swallowed. "Then why am I here?" The commander exhaled slowly, as if weighing the risk of speaking. "Because sometimes we need fresh eyes. And because once you've heard it, you don't go back." He tapped the glass behind him. "Do you know what that chain holds?" I hesitated. "An entity?" He smirked. "That's the polite word. What it is, nobody knows. It shifts. It writhes. Sometimes sonar shows limbs. Sometimes a void. Sometimes nothing at all. We call it the entity because men need names for things they can't stand nameless." The hum pressed against my skull just then. Slow. Steady. I winced, but the commander didn't react. "Why not destroy it?" I asked. "Nuke it. Burn it. Whatever it takes. Isn't that safer?" His expression hardened. "You think we haven't tried? You think the brass didn't consider every bomb in the arsenal?" He tapped the desk once. "Listen carefully. The entity isn't the point. It's what lies beneath it." My breath caught. "Beneath?" He nodded. "A gate. At least that's what we believe. Every reading, every test, points to something older than the seabed itself. Something the entity sits on. Like a lid." My stomach twisted. The hum throbbed harder, almost like it wanted to punctuate his words. so if you kill it. The seal stands open, he finished. His good eye burned into mine, and no one knows what comes through. Silence filled the room, broken only by the steady vibration in my head. For the first time, I realized it wasn't random. It was deliberate, rhythmic, almost like speech blurred into pulse. I whispered, "Then we're not keeping it chained. We're keeping the seal locked." The commander didn't smile, but something flickered in his face. Relief or pity. "Now you understand. Control is the sweetest lie. It lets us sleep while standing at the edge of the abyss." The words fell out of me like a confession. That night, the storm came harder than any before. Waves hammered the supports. Wind screamed through the rig. Rain fell sideways in sheets. Orders blasted over intercoms. "All hands to stations. Secure hydraulics. Maintain anchors." I ran with my team, boots slipping on wet metal. The hum was constant now, pounding in my skull, syncing with my heartbeat. It wasn't faint anymore. It was a voice, without words. On the main deck, the derrick towered above us, its chains quivering under impossible strain. One link lurched downward, massive enough to blot the floodlights as it moved. The whole platform trembled. I thought of those field notes from the archive. It moves with the moon. The sky above split with lightning, and I understood. Tonight was its rising. The commander appeared on the catwalk, shouting into a radio, his coat whipping like a banner. Soldiers fired flares into the storm. The sea glowed red and white, a boiling cauldron beneath us. I turned toward the water, and that's when I saw it. Not the entity. Not exactly. An eye, vast, lidless, not even round, but stretched into a rectangle that fractured into a dozen smaller circles. They dilated, split apart, multiplied, then peeled open into pure black void. It wasn't an eye at all. It was a door, staring back at me. I staggered against the railing, gasping. The hum screamed now, rattling my skull like a drum. It wasn't trying to frighten me. It was trying to speak. Screens in the control hub flickered. One by one, telemetry feeds went dark. Numbers dissolved into static. Then words appeared across every monitor. "You are not holding me. You are holding the door." The sirens blared. Chains shrieked. Men shouted orders that sounded like prayers. My knees buckled as the message burned itself into my mind. What we chain in the dark is not always our enemy. Sometimes it is the last barrier against what waits to come. The words felt less like my own thought, and more like something whispered into me from the depths. The storm raged on. The gates stared back, and the hum